Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. This is the Space Habitat event. Today is December 6th, 2020, and we have the presence of Professor Robert Zubrin from the Math Society with us today, and then Professor Julio Rezende, or coordinator of the event, and then Professor Rob Zubrin, just doing again the question is related to about your thoughts about the updates of SpaceX and Elon Musk, also presented during the Mass Society 23rd Mass Society conventions, and your thoughts about when we will be in Mars.
Okay. So first, my general point of view. Um, I think that we have a revolution in space flight going on right now, and it's happening before our eyes. This is the entrepreneurial revolution, which is being spearheaded by SpaceX, but it's not limited to SpaceX. Um, and but talking about SpaceX, we had the cost of space launch was uh, dropped rapidly from 1957 to 1969. That is from Sputnik to the moon landing. But from 1969 to 2010, it stayed the same. It wasn't reduced at all. $10,000 a kilogram to reach orbit. Um, but since 2010, with the entrance of SpaceX into active operations as a launch company, the cost of space launch has come down by a factor of five. And with the introduction of the mostly reusable Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. And and as we speak, SpaceX is preparing the first launch of its next generation launch vehicle, the Starship, which could reduce the cost of space launch again. And now we're talking about $500 a kilogram to reach orbit. And this is going to change the world, and not only cheap, but large capacity. A vehicle with the same capacity as a Saturn V moon rocket, but reusable, so perhaps 1% of the launch cost, or 2% the launch cost of a Saturn V. And this is extraordinary. This is going to open up the moon, it's going to open up Mars, it's going to open up commercial space development. And, the cheaper space launch is, the more satellites get launched. And that means the cheaper satellites become. And the cheaper space launch is, the less conservative spacecraft designers need to be. For the past half century, the wisdom has been don't use anything that hasn't been used before, because the launch is so expensive that we can't afford to take any chances on any new technology. And this has been a formula for stagnation in spacecraft technology. But with the launches becoming cheaper, it's possible for spacecraft designers to be less conservative, more adventurous, more new technologies introduced into flight. So spacecraft are going to become cheaper, they're going to become better. Okay, they're going to become more capable. And so space launch cheaper, spacecraft more capable is going to open up extraordinary possibilities in terms of development of the solar system. Uh, and and now I just want to talk briefly about why I think this is the most important thing going on in the world today. Okay, that is, there's about four reasons, and I discuss them in the case for space, as to why we need to embrace this. One's for the knowledge, for the challenge, for our survival, and for the future. Okay, the knowledge, going into space. Space is the universe is the biggest lab there is. We've learned most of what we've learned about physics through astronomy. Actually, we learned about classical physics, gravity, through astronomy. We learned much about electromagnetism through astronomy, relativity through astronomy, nuclear fusion through astronomy. And there are fundamental laws of physics that remain to be discovered, and we're only going to discover them through astronomy, through grand space telescopes, dwarfing what we already have, which will become possible with new space launch. We're going to make fundamental discoveries in biology when we go to Mars, because we're going to find out if life, as it appeared on Mars, and I do believe that life did appear on Mars, because Mars, the early Mars, is very similar to the early Earth, and life appeared on Earth virtually as soon as it could after the early bombardment. But there's no reason why it had to be done exactly the same way as we did it here. You know, all Earth life is the same at the biochemical level. That is, it all uses the same alphabet. DNA, RNA, the same method of recording information, just like all the Western languages. Okay, I speak English, we use the Latin alphabet. You speak, I don't know, Spanish or Portuguese. Either way, it's the Latin alphabet. The French use the Latin alphabet. The Germans, the Poles, they use the Latin alphabet. Okay, the Russians use a somewhat different alphabet, but it works on the same set of principles as the Latin alphabet. In fact, they have a common origin in the Greek alphabet. But the Chinese use a totally different alphabet. Okay, totally different alphabet, works on a completely different set of principles than the Latin alphabet or the Cyrillic alphabet does. It's not based on sound, it's based on pictures. It's a totally different method of recording information. And it has different possibilities, different strengths and weaknesses compared to what the Latin alphabet can do. Well, similarly, there could be different kinds of life, uses different information systems, which could involve totally different sets of possibilities. And it's waiting to be discovered by going out into space. And this has extraordinary implications, not just for theoretical biology, but for medicine, for bioengineering, for all these things. Okay, the next is the challenge. I think civilizations are like individuals. We grow when we challenge ourselves, we stagnate when we do not. The United States benefited enormously from embracing the challenge of space in the Apollo program. It encouraged millions of people to go into science. We doubled the number of science graduates in this country in the 60s at every level, high school, college, PhD, and we've benefited from that ever since. I happen to be unusual of that generation. I was one of that generation who entered science because of Apollo, but I'm unusual in that I actually ended up doing space. But the rest of them went off and they did the computer revolution. And, you know, we're not going to find the cure for COVID on the space station, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the team that does find the cure, that finds the vaccines, and developed the tools to find the vaccines, included numerous people who became scientists because they were inspired by the space program. The survival. The Earth is in space. That's where we are. And everything in space is always moving around, and the objects are crashing into each other all the time. And when things crash into the Earth, it causes catastrophic consequences. The dinosaurs, of course, were driven to extinction. But this isn't just something that happened 65 million years ago. We had asteroids hitting Russia in 1908 and in 1947 and 2013 with megaton blast consequences. And we need to take control of this flight traffic. And it's only by becoming spacefaring that we can do that, gain the ability to deflect incoming asteroids. And then finally, there's the future. I mean, what are people in the future going to think about what's important today? You know, if you ask any North American or Latin American, I believe, what happened in 1492, they would tell you that was when Columbus sailed. And that is correct. It's when he sailed. But there's any number of other things that happened in 1492. Lorenzo de' Medici, the richest man in the world, died in 1492. England and France signed a peace treaty in 1492. The Borgias took over the papacy in 1492. If there had been newspapers in 1492, those would have been the headline events, not Italian navigator sails off with 3 ships into the wild blue yonder, you know, for no apparent purpose. But yet we don't remember. No one today cares about the fact that the Borgias took over the papacy in 1492. What matters to us is Columbus, because he made, for us in the Western Hemisphere, he made our civilization possible. Now, 500 years from now, if we do what we can do in our time, there will be new branches of human civilization on thousands of new worlds, not just Mars, but on thousands of planets beyond our solar system, because we're going to become spacefaring, and Mars is just the first step. And these will be new civilizations. They will have new languages. They will have new customs. They will have new forms of social organization. They will have made innumerable contributions to science and technology, and they will have grand histories of epic and heroic deeds that will inspire people to go further. And looking back on our time, what will they consider what is important? Will they consider all these different political scandals and intrigues that everybody's fixated on today important? Will they care which side won in Syria? No. Okay. What will matter to them is what we did to make their civilization possible. This is why this is the most important thing happening in the world today. But also, this vision needs to be understood today, because it's not just a matter of something that's going to happen 500 years ago. How we conceive of the future will condition the present and the near future. Because you see, the question is there going to be an open future or a closed future? Okay, is humanity going to be limited to the earth? Is this all there is? Is this all there is to go around? Okay, this idea that there's only so much to go around was the cause of all the great disasters of the 20th century. There's only so much to go around, so let's fight over it. Okay, 1914, Eurasia is either going to be ruled by Germany or Russia. German General Staff said, well, we're going to have to fight them sooner or later. Better sooner than later, take them down before they industrialize. Japan and China, same thing. Japanese, 1930s, said, look, who's going to rule Asia? Either us or the Chinese. They're weak right now. We're going to have to fight them sooner or later. Let's fight them sooner. And today, there are people who think that the West and China are going to have to fight. And if that is so, then we're in a pre-war situation. And the only question is when and how. But if it is understood that it's not true that there's only so much to go around, that the earth doesn't have limited resources because it comes with an infinite sky. And by working together, we can throw it wide open, and the universe is big enough for everybody. Okay. And there's no point fighting over provinces if by working together, we can open up planets. Okay. And this, it's not that we're going to bring oil back from Mars. Okay. It's that what we're going to bring back from settling Mars is an understanding that our resources are unlimited because our potential creativity is unlimited if we only put it to use. That is the understanding that will save us. That is the understanding that will create a positive human future. That's why we got to do that.
Yes, wonderful. Yes. And then if you imagine the terms of technology innovations that will be happening in the next years, also in the next centuries, I believe is something unimaginable sometimes, and then this would be very disturbing. And about the plans of Elon Musk, what do you think? What is he's having success about the plans, or what do you think?
Yes, well, Musk is moving very fast. He's not moving as fast as he, predicts, but he's moving pretty fast. So, we haven't seen any rocket team do the kinds of things that he's doing since von Braun's team in the 1960s. If then. This is extraordinary. Probably this week, Starship will make its first flight into the stratosphere. Okay. And it may succeed or it may crash. But you know what? It doesn't matter that much if it crashes, because this is prototype number 8. They've got prototype number 9 already built, and they're actually working on 10, 11, and 12 already. They're turning these things out at a rate of 1 a month. They're prepared to take losses. If they crash, they're not going to be shut down for 2 years while they figure out what happens. Okay, they'll try again next month. Okay, and then again the month after that. Build them, fly them, crash them, fix the problem, try again. That's their approach. Okay, and it's really the kind of approach that happened in the early days of aviation. Okay, when people didn't wait 2 years after a mishap before they tried flying again. Okay, they kept trying till they got it right. And that's why air travel today is a success. You know, by 50 years after the Wright brothers were flying, there were jet planes. Okay, here we are 50 years after Apollo, and we're still kind of in the Wright brothers stage of this, but that's about to change. In terms of Musk, okay, I'll tell you what I think. All right. You know, last October, he said, I think we'll reach orbit by 6 months. I said, no, 2 years. That is, they'll do it in 2022. And that's when I think they'll probably reach orbit with Starship. It's conceivable they could make it next year, in late 2021. I think it's a good bet they'll make it in 2022. It's a very safe bet they'll make it by 2023. And if starships are flying to orbit, say by 2024, and they definitely will be, okay, we're going to have somebody elected president in 2024. And if these things, Saturn V class vehicles flying to orbit, coming down, landing, if this is a regular thing happening in the world of 2024, political leaders are going to look at their advisors and say, look at this, can I have people on Mars by the end of my second term? Well, sure. Is it going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars? No, we can do it within NASA's existing budget. There's a bunch of stuff that Musk isn't developing, but we could develop it. There's surface nuclear reactors, Mars spacesuits, ISRU systems, you know, etc. Well, we can develop that. We can meet him halfway. And in other words, by making humans to Mars practical, Musk is going to make it sellable. It's going to make it sell itself. And so even though it's not on any planning chart right now at NASA or ESA, I think we're going to have humans on Mars by 2030. That's what we're going to do. Okay. So my predictions are not quite as aggressive as Musk. You know, he claimed last week that he could have people on Mars by 2024 or 2026. I think it'll take a few years longer than that, but not too much longer than that. I think it's going to happen.
Yes, wonderful. And how your thoughts about moon exploration? How this is competing with the plans for Mars, and your thoughts about in terms of the correct news.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of Trump, but the Trump administration did realize that NASA's human spaceflight program absolutely needed a concrete goal. That we've been going for the past half century without a goal, and therefore the accomplishments have been very limited of the human spaceflight program since the end of Apollo. Okay, in fact, the only really important achievement was the launch and repair and upgrade of the Hubble Space Telescope, which was important. But you know, for 50 years of human spaceflight, that's not that much of an accomplishment record. So they set a goal. They said, back to the moon. Now, I think that was too conservative a goal. It's something we did half century ago. I don't think you can inspire the youth of today with the challenge of repeating what their grandparents did. And furthermore, Mars is where the science is, it's where the challenge is, and it's where the future is. So the goal should be humans to Mars. But they did, at least with their moon goal, put some sense of urgency into it, saying we want to do it by 2024. Now, they didn't act like they wanted to do it by 2024, it has to be said. Because if you want to go to the moon by 2024, you don't put a lunar orbiting space station in your program path that you don't really need. Okay. They're spending all this money on building a lunar orbiting space station, which they don't need. And what you do need if you want to go to the moon is a lunar lander, which is still in design studies at this point. But now the question is, what's going to happen to this program, which they call Project Artemis? Because now, of course, we have a new administration coming in. This program, as I've said, is somewhat flawed in its design. It's somewhat flawed in its concept. Will it remain in place? I'd give it 50-50 that the Biden people will continue Project Artemis or just cancel it. Because it's not invented here, they're not responsible for it, and the arguments for it are not that strong. But what I do hope is if they do shift to Mars, which Obama claimed his goal was Mars, but Obama had no urgency in his program, that they take one thing from the Trump people, which is that if you have a program like this, it has to have a sense of urgency. It has to actually command the resources of the agency. It can't just be a dream that is talked about to have a nice dream. But here's the thing, I'm not that confident that the Biden administration will say, okay, humans to Mars by 2030, this is our goal. I think the chances of that are modest. But I think the thinking within the political class is going to be changed by what Musk does. Because he's going to change the facts on the ground. And facts are very powerful things. And so as I say, by introducing Starship, he's going to change the discussion. And instead of talking about humans to Mars in 2048, after we've built a lunar orbiting space station and a lunar base and a Mars orbiting space station, no, it'll be, we're really going to do this.
Okay, wonderful. I know about your busy time, and then I will maybe be doing more 2 or 3 questions, and also open to the audience. We have Dr. Michaela Musilova from High Seas also with us, also Terry Trevino, Jonathan Alder, other friends from many countries, from India, from Mexico, from Germany and United States. And then if one of our audience here would like to do some questions to Professor Robert Zubrin, are welcome. Also comments.
Hello, excuse me. Professor, first of all, I'd like to really say thanks to you because this year I had the opportunity to participate on the Mars Society Convention, the Congress, and it was fantastic. I mean, I would never have such opportunity if you haven't came up with this idea of opening it to the public. So I'd like to say thank you very much for this.
You're most welcome, and we'll see if we can do it again.
Yeah, it was really important for me. I met so many people, so many great people there. And also, I'd like to ask you, you are probably aware of the Mars University program?
Yes.
So I think it's important for us to engage the youth and the professionals we have into space exploration, as well as Mars missions. So I'm really into what these folks are doing. I'm willing to apply. I'm going to apply for the Mars University. And we are also seeking, I contacted them, the personnel from the Mars University, and they are seeking sponsorship from from companies, from people that can get awareness about the university. So I'd like to know if you could help us somehow spread the news about the Mars University.
Well, Mars Society is okay. The Mars University is not a project of the Mars Society per se. It's a project of a number of people who are involved in the Mars Society. And the Mars Society is collaborating with them we intend to make the facilities of the Mars Desert Research Station available to the Mars University. And we, for instance, had the Mars University have a panel at our conference so that they could tell a lot of people about the project. And
Yes.
we are happy to, if Mars University has some press releases they want to send out, we'll be happy to send those out to our list so more people hear about it. So we're willing to lend a hand. It's the role of the Mars Society is not to try to run everything that is associated with Mars. It's to encourage other people to come up with projects and do things. And so we have a lot of different things going on. Now, there's some things we do run ourselves, like the Mars Desert Research Station, but others are things that we just want to encourage people to do, and we'll give whatever help we can.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I really look up to you, your example, and thank you so much for answering my questions.
My pleasure.
A friend of our friend Aníbal have a question about the profile of the people to occupy Mars in an early stage. What kind of astronaut will be in the first missions to there?
Well, look, in the early stage, if we're talking about the first exploration missions, the human payload of the mission are the field scientists, the prospectors, the geologists, the microbiologists, the people who are going to advance our understanding of Mars. And their key support are the engineers, and here we're talking about practical engineers, flight engineers, people who can fix things, because if you want to know, the main danger to a human Mars missions is not cosmic rays or things like this that everybody talks about. It's failure of flight systems. That is where the risk is. And the Russians, every single Mars mission they launched failed, but almost all their missions to Earth orbit with cosmonauts have succeeded. And the reason is that their human missions have succeeded because of the resiliency of the cosmonauts and being able to fix flight systems when they fail, whereas on their unmanned robotic missions, there's of course no one there who can fix it. And so I think, people say the human factor is going to be the weak link in the chain of the Mars mission. The human factor is going to be the strongest link in the chain. The human factor is going to be what makes it all work. And so we want to have a lot of people who are good at fixing things. Hands-on mechanics. Now, it'd be good if, that they know how to identify rocks so they can help in the science. And similarly, it's good if the geologists also know how to fix a broken rover so that they're not completely helpless. But those are the two main functions that are needed on an exploration mission. Now, once we talk about settlement, we still need those functions, of course, but we start needing additional functions, industrial and agricultural engineering. The key to settlement is developing technologies that allow us to take materials of Mars and turn them into resources. There's no such thing as a natural resource. There's only natural raw materials. It is resourceful people who turn materials into resources by developing the technology that allows you to use them, okay? If two people are stranded on an island and one knows how to fish and the other does not, okay, then one has food resources and the other doesn't. Okay, and of course you would have to know how to make the fishing equipment that is needed for that situation, and operate it for the kinds of fish that are available in that area. But that's the thing, okay? That ocean is a resource for the islander who knows how to create fishing equipment and operate it. For those who don't, it's just a bunch of salt water. It's totally useless. Okay, so we have to go to Mars, and the key function of an early Mars base is to develop the technologies to turn Martian materials into resources. Okay, so industrial engineering, developing ISRU technology. Now, of course, people know that my Mars mission plan, Mars Direct, and also Musk's, key to it is making rocket propellant on Mars, methane and oxygen. That's the most obvious thing that's needed for an initial mission, because that's how you get the propellant to come back. But we want to do more than, if you're going to have a base, if you're going to have people living on Mars, you don't want to import food to Mars from Earth. You need to grow it there. Okay, you can bring the food on an exploration mission, sure, but a society, no. And we want to be able to make building materials on Mars. Ceramics, bricks, glass, metals, plastics, wires, tubes, habitation structures. Okay, all these things need to be created on Mars, and we have to have the technology. So developing these technologies will be key. Now, it's not necessarily the case that every single thing that goes into a Mars greenhouse is made on Mars. We're going to make the glass on Mars if it's a glass greenhouse. Yes, because that's big, that's heavy. But, and maybe even the motors for the fans. But the computer chips that control the automated systems that run the greenhouse, that's more complicated. And if we have to bring them from Earth, fine. They don't weigh very much. So, but what's important is we start with the heaviest things, which is what we make first. And that's why propellant is first on the list. Second is food and water. Okay. Third, after that, well, oxygen, that goes along with food and water, consumables, but then steel. Who wants to bring steel across interplanetary space when you got a planet that's red because it's made of iron oxide? Okay. So, then glass, so forth. So we move up a scale of sophistication, making the heaviest and crudest materials first, and then increasingly the more sophisticated materials, reducing ever more the amount of mass that needs to be sent to Mars.
Wonderful. And some questions are related how to motivate youth and kids, the future astronauts, to space and to be interested in space and Mars or Moon.
Well, I think to show them the vision of what we're trying to do. I think this is a very exciting vision, and I think if young people see that this is real, that this isn't just a movie, that this is real, that this is what is going on now, that this is what is happening. Okay, people want to be part of what is happening. I mean, what is happening that's important. Okay, this is what's happening. Okay, be part of what's happening. Learn your science, and you can be an explorer of new worlds.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yes. Also, if maybe more one question, if someone would like also do it with your own voice, okay, you can do one last question for Professor Robert Zubrin. You are welcome.
Okay. I would like to thank Professor Zubrin for all his contributions and intelligence to space research and to everything that we're trying to accomplish. And to elaborate on when you're talking about weights, I know the last research that we did, the cost per pound to lift off of the planet Earth is around $24,000 just to lift 1 pound off of this planet.
Well, that used to be true, but in fact, at this point, using the Falcons, it's more like $1,000 a pound, $2,000 a kilogram. That's the advantage of reusability. So yes, the number that you just quoted was true until not too long ago. And that, of course, is too heavy for substantial space. That's too costly for substantial space development. But yeah, that is a problem that we are in the process of fixing.
Yes, and with Starship program, I believe Elon, the Musk Foundation, I think they're tackling that pretty well.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Professor Robert Zubrin, if you have a last message to the audience of the event, you are very welcome. And also the plans for Mars Society of 2020. We know about the pandemic is impacting also the Mars Desert Research Station. And then what are your thoughts about the next year of the operation
Well,
of Mars Society?
You know, what happens at MDRS is somewhat dependent on what happens with the COVID pandemic. Right now we've postponed opening it until I think February. I could be mistaken about that, but that's the last I heard. This thing has got to be got under control. It's very difficult for people to travel. We certainly don't want to have a COVID situation break out in the MDRS. Social distancing is impossible inside of MDRS. So on that, we have to wait and see. In terms of our next convention, there's a chance now with the vaccines coming out that the pandemic will be suppressed by the fall, which is when we would ordinarily have our convention, so that it might be possible to have an in-person convention. But I have to say that this year's making it a teleconvention, as the young woman said, who spoke earlier, it actually was extremely successful, and we were able to involve many more people than it was possible using a live convention. So at this point, we're discussing having another teleconvention, even if we, in principle, don't have to, because the typical in-person convention, we get 500 people, and here we had 10,000 registered, and over 1 million have since the convention come and watch some of the presentations online. So, and of course it was much cheaper for everyone. It was cheaper for the participants. It was cheaper for us. People didn't have to fly. People didn't have to stay in hotel rooms. So we're looking at this, that this might be the right way to do conventions, even when we could do them live. Though, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll do 2 of these and then 1 live one, 2 of these, 1 live, that kind of thing, so that we have live conventions every once in a while, bring people together face to face. But I think that more and more, we and probably other people are going to choose the teleconvention as the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Professor Robert Zubrin, thanks so much for your presentation. And
my pleasure.
Yes, and that is an action of the Mars Society Brazil, also the Brazilian University UFRN from Rio Grande do Norte state, and also the Habitat Marte Space Analog Station. Okay, and thanks so much. And then also today to finish, we have a presentation of Jonathan Nauder and also Dr. Michaela Musilova, and then from High Seas, okay. And then I'd like to know who will be the presenter. And Professor Robert Zubrin, you are welcome to watch, or if you have other appointments.
I need to go, but good luck for the rest of your event. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a nice day.
Okay, same to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Oh,
yes, it was wonderful. Yes, I believe he had some problem to be in the right time, but I believe it was wonderful. Yes, okay.
Yes. Thank you to Julio for bringing him here. You're amazing too.
Yes, it was amazing. Yes, really, I really like it. And then yes, Jonathan, I must let you. Okay, just a moment. I need to stop here.